with yourself, and then things happen, whatever it happens to be. You may find great inner peace or go to sleep or whatever it happens to be.
When I first started trying to do transcendental meditation, I slept a lot.
Yeah.
But because it was a safe place, I guess.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get the hang of that.
It's a daily practice to do things like that. It really is. And then we land in our hectic world, and it goes away.
Well, it's really interesting because if you don't maintain that practice, then the hectic world tends to invade your space.
Oh, yeah.
And it's harder to get back into your groove, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I can't, I'm no saint here. I can't tell you how many times that I was just too busy. I just go till I drop, because once I get direction, I just can hardly stop myself. I may have trouble getting direction, but that's what happens when I go within. Then I don't, I go, and next thing I know, I've fallen asleep someplace. And so, excuse or not, you lose it. You lose it way too fast.
Yeah.
But the plants have been very consistent about speaking to me. In fact, one time I was at the, I guess it was the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens or something. I was up there doing some research for Mother Nature's Herbal and met a client, and we went to the Botanical Gardens, and she said, this doesn't usually happen to me, but I'm just watching you walk, down this sidewalk or path. And she said, all these plants are responding to you. She said, I can actually see them responding to you. And I'm thinking, yeah, they probably want to be watered or something.
They're looking for a nurturer.
In my gardens, I'm just always, nitpicking and looking. And it's like, okay, we've got enough water, we've got enough this, because, like you said, they're living beings, and the more you know them, the relationship becomes one of intimacy of some sort. What I'm trying to say?
I do know what you're trying to say, and I find it interesting because my dad we were the only people in our entire neighborhood that celebrated Arbor Day, right? We always planted trees. He was very into maintaining but his was forests as opposed to nurtured gardens.
Okay.
And so I was raised to think that that's what you're supposed to do.
That's wonderful.
And it is, but I got very frustrated because I made the mistake of being the person who planted his memorial tree. And it's the only memorial tree I've ever heard of that died.
Oh.
So I was crushed. And so my husband was in charge of replacing that. And that one worked out.
Maybe, well, it still had a purpose.
Well, it did.
Yeah.
Because it gave me such joy and peace when that happened, and it just felt right. I think that it was it was the year before the fires in Cherokee. So I just think that wasn't supposed to happen right there.
And plants come in with an immune system. When you get a hold of one, you may not know how immune competent it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you plant them and find out, well, something wasn't right.
This was not the right plant for this area. That's what I discovered with that. I cannot believe this. We're already up on our first break, and this is going to be 3 minutes. We'll be right back.
listening to WBHM, Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back. You are listening to Fate Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama, and I am joined by my guest, Dr. Judy Griffin, and we are talking about all things horticulturally and herbally. I am so interested in the medicinal side of this, which I know that we're going to get to as well. I looked forever for an herbologist or just an alternative medicine physician who could help me with thyroid issues. I had radioactive iodine for Graves' disease and needed some assistance because the levothyroxine just wasn't working for me. And I think it's really neat because when I found her, she's the only doctor I've ever had who hugged me.
Oh, yeah.
And said, "I'm so glad you found me. I can help you."
Cool.
So, it seems like one of the best things in the world as far as treating a human is with natural products.
Sure has less side effects.
Well, that's the truth, said she who has been taking medication for about 5 weeks now, and I'm completely over it. But go ahead and, if you would, let people know how this came to you.
How? No, I guess I don't understand the question. How?
Well, I know that your family had a history of working with herbs, and that gift came to you as well.
Yes. And I was telling you, I didn't think I was the one the gift should come to, but there is a tradition in my mother's side of the family, especially. My parents are both from Italy, and they grew plants, they used herbs a lot, of course, in that area, but they worked with flowers and with herbs. My great aunt was an herbalist. She treated everybody, and she learned kind of the same way, where it just, at first there's a curiosity, and then it just starts, the knowledge just starts flooding to you. And one time when I was about 4 years old, maybe, I watched my mother dance around the room and drink the water that she was soaking some rose flowers in. And I'm looking at her like, my mother was a little fairy anyway. And my dad would grow roses for her. And instead of putting them in a vase, she would put them in a bowl of water. And then after an hour or so, she'd take little drinks of it. And she said, "It makes you feel good." And she'd dance around the room. And I remember, it's the first time I remember my eyebrows knitting, like, how can this be, And I guess that's what I thought of when the pediatrician told me, go home and do what you know how to do. Wow, we grew herbs and we grew flowers. That's what we all did. I didn't know my dad's family as much as my mom's, but there was some tradition there too. But we traced my mom's family back a good 4 generations, making flower essences and using them and other herbal products, very often topically, but not always, sometimes internally, for healing. They used them they were the town midwife. They did, when anybody's like a curandero, when anybody had an ailment, they would go to my family, the matronly part of the family, for help. So, and my mother was just, she just liked to dance around and feel good.
Well, I'm going to tell you, who doesn't?
Yeah, but I had to take it further because, researcher by nature, I just had to learn more about it. And boy, it was a lot more than I thought I was going to learn. It wasn't just learning about what other cultures did, but I gathered, all this information would come to me from flowers, and I didn't know what to do at first. And a really good friend, older than me at the time, not many people are older than me now, but she said, well, write it down. It's like, okay. How you try and remember everything, but it was just like, wow, this is just unstoppable. And I'm still learning things now about what I wrote 20 and 30 and 40 years ago about some of these plants and flowers, because I'm very often challenged with different situations with people. When I've done work for hospitals, and that's making blends and things like, to be used topically as a complementary therapy. But they use them before surgery. They use them after surgery. They started using them in with bone marrow transplant patients, and you can hardly touch them, especially at first. And they're spraying them in the room. So I learned and was challenged more and more to come up with a blend for this, come up with a blend for that. And I would see people privately as clients. Very often other things didn't work. And so I work with the flowers and herbs with more of a subtle energy approach, not trying to tackle a diagnosis, but feeling the energy of the person. If I'm talking to them on the phone, I can hear it. I pick it up that way. And that's the easiest way for me to pick it up. But then I'd start putting blends together because it works with our biochemical individuality.